Welcome to another meeting of TV Holics Anonymous. Welcome to another meeting of TV Holics Anonymous. My name is Ruru, and I am a TV holic. So again, we're going to do this episode without Mimi because she does not watch this show. And I'm just going to get straight into it. Episode 4 of Weightlifting Fairy Kim Bok Joo. So, what happens in this episode? Let's get to it. So basically, she's like, they're showing her at the clinic, and she's just kind of like slowly like licking her fingers and like counting out the money, and the money's like sticking together. She's counting it like a million times, and she's like, should I count it again? And they're like, no, just give us the money, basically, at the clinic, at the weight loss clinic, at Swimmer Dude's older brother's weight loss clinic, this is. And she's just like meticulously counting it, and they're kind of getting really annoyed with her. And they're like, they basically take it because it's a large payment. And then she is like told, like, we'll give you a gown. And she's basically sitting there in the gown. It's like an orange colored, like, it's not a gown, but it's translated to gown. It's kind of like, you know what they wear in like Chinese spas, like they give you like that, or like it kind of also looks like an orange like nurse's outfit, but a bit more comfortable looking. It doesn't look like that polyester material. It looks like cotton, soft cotton kind of material. And then she's talking to the doctor, Swimmer Dude's brother, and he's like, oh, you're a lot healthier than I thought, looking at her test results. And she's like, yeah, I think I am. And then he's like, well, some people are like overweight and unhealthy and have excessive body fat, but you have like muscle. So you also just muscle, basically. And she's like, okay. And you know what's really, really weird? She's like kind of tilting forward and looking like all weird and creepy, which is like very strange. It made her like, her actions make her look really like strange. So then they're just like discussing like the weight loss stuff, and he's like just telling her about like her options, and she's saying, I saw an idol group before and they like only ate half a potato and a boiled egg for a meal. Even like a bird would eat more than that, she's saying. And then he's kind of like laughing, and she's just talking about her friend said she'd lose weight only by eating like sweet potatoes. And like she said that her friend like basically devoured up like a whole box of sweet potatoes a day. Sorry, I'm like losing my voice. And then basically again, I'm just watching and I'm just like talking about it. I'm just watching it on mute on ×1 speed and just chatting about it. And then he's like, actually that's kind of like an extreme diet and has a high possibility of failing. So it's good that you're like trying to lose weight like slowly. There's no need to rush. Like it has to be done slowly for it to be done healthily. So that's what he's just explaining to her. I think we can just like move on. And then he just basically like is like, okay, so hop up on the, like, he's like puts his hand out like to shake hands with her, and she's like looking at her hands and they're all like calloused up from weightlifting, and then she just kind of like slaps his hand instead, like awkwardly, and then looks like really awkwardly and shyly, and he's just kind of like laughing, and he's like, yeah, we've got clear goals, basically. Can you hop up on the bed? And she's like, bed? And she's not understanding like treatment table, so she climbs up on there and she's like really nervous, and like waiting to see what he does, and he's got like this big machine, and he goes to apply cream on her like stomach area, and she kind of like holds her top, and then he like puts the cream on, she lets him, and then they begin the treatment. So he's got some kind of like not liposuction machine, but kind of like I think it's like those laser fat dissolving machines or something like that. So it just does it from the outside. But she doesn't have any fat. She just has and it looks painful because her face is just like she's making weird faces, or maybe it's ticklish or whatever. And she's being awkward. And then they give her like this card, and she's told to write down what she eats, including snacks and everything. And she's just given instructions by the like nurses or receptionists. And then he's just saying bye to her and saying that it'll probably rain, so don't forget to take an umbrella. And she's like, yeah, I'll give your umbrella back to you next session. And he's like, oh, I'm not asking for it back, so don't worry about that. Did it sound that way? And she's like, no, it didn't, but I should give it back anyway. And then they're like, bye, basically, and she's just smiling, and like he's like, get home safely, and she's like so happy, and like walking on cloud nine, and she's walking through the streets of Seoul, and then she sees like this little stand, and she's looking at like buckles and stuff. So this woman helps her pick out a nice buckle, and then she also finds this like other thing, or she's there like this red kind of bow buckle for her hair, and she wants to basically she's trying to like look more feminine when she goes. So she just picks that one out and says, I'll take that. And then she's like looking around, and she sees that this woman's making stuff by hand, like this beaded stuff. So she's thinking that I should buy something else, because like it's not polite to just like come empty-handed just with the umbrella. Then we see all the like gymnastics girls practicing, and the gymnastics teacher's asking Shiho like, what are you dating someone? And she's like, what? And she's like, no. But then the gymnastics teacher is like, why can't you maintain your weight? Which I think is crazy. Like the emphasis on weight on this show is like wild. And I think maybe it's just like also a very Korean thing, because I just don't think that gymnasts like these days, I know this was like about 10 years ago, but I just don't think gymnasts like care about weight that much. I think they're more like into building muscle. Like muscle is important, not about being like skinny and lean. It's more about building muscle so you can be strong at like maneuvering yourself, like thrusting yourself in the air and things like that. But I digress. So she's like, you aren't going on dates, are you? And she's like, is that why you're gaining weight? She's like, I don't know what to do with you. You're not going to Russia, and you can't keep your weight down. And she's basically like berating her. And she's just feeling crap about herself, Shiho. Because like, she's getting told off by her coach, her gymnastics coach. And she's like, you don't have any sense of urgency anymore. And she's like, I understand, I'll take care of myself better. Then we cut to the bathroom, and the gymnastics girls are trying to like sneak some kind of like peanut butter, like chocolatey snack, like little bits of it, and they're all eating a tiny bit. And they're not allowed to because they have to keep their weight down, but they're just like, oh, this is so sweet. Let's sneak and eat the rest of this later. So then they're just like gossiping, and they're talking about Shiho. And they're like, oh, did you know that she barged into the men's dormitory and she cried in front of her ex-boyfriend? So they're just like bitching about that. And then they're like, isn't it a shock she didn't make the like national team? And I've never seen like our coach scold her like this either. And they're just like, yeah. And then they're like, Shiho's always been like the coach's favorite. So I feel bad for her, but I feel like she's saying that in a really like sarcastic, mean girl way. Like I don't really feel bad for her, but I'm just saying it. This is like the bitchy gymnastics girl, the one that was mean to what's her name? Kim Bok Joo. And they're also saying she's not agile due to her age, like age shaming her basically. She's not as good as she was before, and she doesn't have financial support from her family. And then the rest of the girls, this is what I've noticed as well. People in Korea, like, they kind of frown upon poor people, like they look down on them. And they're basically the girls are doing that, so they're like, "Oh, isn't she from a rich family?" And then the other girl's like, "Oh, so you didn't know?" She's not. She's poor, and you won't believe what happened today. And they're like, "What happened? What happened?" I went to see our coach earlier today, and I saw Shiho towards coming towards us, looking upset. And then she's gonna say something else, but Shiho appears from the bathroom, from the toilet stall, and she was listening to the whole thing. And she's washing her hands, and she's like, "It's true that I barged into the men's dormitory, but I didn't cry." She's saying this really confidently with a smile on her face, by the way. And then she's like, "People made it too dramatic." And then she's just like staring at the girls, and the girls look really embarrassed. And then she's like, comes right up to them, and she's like, "Thank you for understanding me. However, don't worry about my family business. It's nothing for you to worry about." I understand, basically, the head bitchy girl is saying. And then Shiho kind of like walks out of the bathroom, and like the head bitchy girl's like, "Oh, like weak at the knees," and she's like, "She scared me so much." And then the girls are like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" So then we see Shiho walking out to the vending machine, and I think she's stressed, so she's going for like a sugary drink. So she opens a can, drinks a bit, and then kind of like it has instant regret. And she's like staring at the can, and then she's like, "Ugh," and she chucks it in the bin after one drink, and then like she vomits outside. She runs outside and vomits into like the bushes, and then the nurse lady, like I think she's a doctor, the campus doctor who is friends with the swimmer dude's brother, who's a doctor as well. She sees her and she says, "Is your stomach upset here?" and gives her like a kind of like tissue or a handkerchief, and she wipes her face with it after like vomiting, and she's like, "Aren't you Shiho?" And she said, "Yeah, I am." Hello, I haven't seen you in a while, she said. When did you get back from I think like from the national team? And she's like, "Yeah, a few days ago." Would it be rude if I say welcome back? The doctor said, and she said it's okay. You can go back in. Many athletes couldn't even make it to like national team tryouts, basically. And she's like, "Right." And then she's just asking, "Are you feeling okay? Should I get you some medicine?" And she's like, "I'm okay. I'll see you later." And she's like, "Stop by the infirmary anytime. I'll massage your ankles. I know that ankles kind of get weak in gymnastics." And she's like, "Yeah, I will." They're just like exchanging. She was just trying to like act cool and like exchange pleasantries, but you can tell that she's like really upset. Like she's just trying to cover it up. And she's just like, "Yeah, I'll get back to training." And she's like, "Yeah, go ahead. Thanks for this." And then this is the grossest part. She hands back the handkerchief that she just wiped her like vomit mouth with, which is like super gross, to the doctor, and the doctor takes it, which is like nasty as well. And then as she walks away, she's like, "How did she get a stomach upset? She didn't even eat much." So she's basically like talking to herself. Then you just see Bok Joo like walking down the street, telling herself it'll be okay. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's not even an expensive gift. And I think she's talking about the handmade gift that she bought the doctor. swimmer dude's brother, and she's just kind of like casually walking down the street, and then she's kind of then she gets to that kind of fountain, not fountain, it's not a wishing well, but it's like a water feature, kind of like waterfall little feature that's like man-made, and she throws another coin in there and wishes. So what she's wishing for, we don't really get to see because she gets startled by the swimmer dude who jumps behind her and says, she says, "You punk," and you startled me. And then he's just like, most girls like shrink back when they get startled, and you're like ready to punch someone. And then he's like kind of clapping his hands, and then she's like, "Speaking of which, did you want my fist in your face?" Basically, so they're just like bickering. And he's like, "Can't you take a joke?" And what's that? Then he notices the like gift that she's got for his brother, and he's like, "What's that?" And she just basically puts it behind her back and says, "None of your business." And then he's convinced that it's like a midnight snack for her, and he's trying to like get her, and she's like, "Are you crazy? How dare you?" And then he's just like, "I'm sorry. I keep forgetting that you're a woman. I'm really sorry," which is really rude. I think the way that they've portrayed women, like weightlifters on this show, is just like they've like masculinized them. They've just made them like look like they're just like gross and like masculine, which is not true at all. Like women weightlifters, I think maybe that was the case that people thought that like back in the day, but now like it's just every woman at the gym like I see is lifting weights, and you're like crazy if you're not. It's I guess it was a different time. Like this was like 10 years ago, so everything was a bit different. Or maybe a bit longer than 10 years ago. I'll have to check that. Anyway, so he's just like, "Oh, my sincerest apologies. I'm really sorry." And then they're just kind of he's just like annoying her while they're walking down the street. He's walking behind her, and she's like turning around to look at him, and he's like, "What?" And he's just like being weird and then smiling, "What is it?" And then she just like carries on walking, and then he's just doing weird things like bopping up and down behind her and just following her. And they're just like, she's just like, "Is it some kind of like horror movie?" Or he said that, and they're just basically antagonizing each other. And he's just like, "We're just friends," and um, they're just like chatting away. Oh, then she asked him like a question, like, "My friend has like a crush on someone," she says, and she borrowed something from him and has to return it, and she wants to give him a gift to say thank you to him. Will that be okay? And he's like, "Who doesn't like gifts? It's okay, right?" And he's like, "Yes, as long as she didn't make it like by hand. It's not like a handmade gift." And she's like, "What's wrong with a handmade gift?" And he's like, "Think about it. If she made the gift, it means that she thought about him while she was making it. So it's like a bit more kind of like an intimate gift, and he'd feel uncomfortable." Um, so she feels a bit sad about this, and she's thinking about this, and then he's like, if she makes her feelings for him too obvious, basically, he'll definitely take a step back. That's the advice that he's giving her. The swimmer dude is giving Kim Bok Joo. And he's like, "Send a simple message, like a thank you to him instead." That's what she's saying. He's saying. And then she kind of like walks off quickly while he's talking. And then they cut to her sitting at her desk, and she's like, "I was so close to making a mistake." And then she's like, "What if I hadn't bumped into Ju Hyun, Ju Hyun, Ju Young, Jun Young, Jun Young?" I hope I'm saying his name right. I'm going to focus on when they're speaking next, and like when she says his name or when someone else says his name, so I can get the name right because I'm botching it. So she's like, if I hadn't bumped into him, then I would have made a mistake. So she's sitting there and she's basically writing a note. She's like, what should I write to him? I'm going to make it as simple as possible. And then she's just like sitting there writing and on her desk, and she's like, is this okay? Should I practice my handwriting? So then she's looking at the umbrella, and she kind of like opens it again. She's so happy about it. She feels like she had her own little K-drama moment with that umbrella. Then the other gymnastics girl comes in, Swimmerdu Jun Young's ex-girlfriend, and because they're like roommates, and she's like, that's a pretty umbrella, did you buy it? And she's like, no, I borrowed it from someone. And then the other girl's just sitting, Shiho is just sitting at her desk. And then Kim Bok Joo gets an appointment, text, that she's got an appointment tomorrow at 2 p.m. And then Shiho's just saying, like, oh, you seem happy. And she's like, oh, yeah, it's nothing. You must be dating someone. I'm jealous. No way. She's like, Kim Bok Joo's like, no way. You're bad at guessing. I could never ever date someone. You're very bad at lying, says Shiho. I'm not lying. Okay, let's just say you aren't, Shiho says. And then she's like, good night. And they basically just both go off to bed. And she just puts the note in the little bag. It's a very feminine bag. It's like a gift bag, and it's got like all these flowers on it. I think I'm actually taking too long to recap this. I'm going to have to think of a better way to recap, because this is just really taking way too long. So, yeah, then they cut to the gym, and like she's with her girlfriends, and they're just like talking about how Shiho like attacked the men's dormitory. Basically, they're saying that they're just like gossiping about how Shiho was in there, and then one of her friends is like, she's much bolder than I thought she was. It's awesome. And then they're like, yeah, gymnasts can be strong-willed, and they even spit out chicken after tasting it. And then Bok Joo's like, I'm not surprised. I'm more surprised that she dated Jun Young. And basically she's like, she's too good for him. And then her friend's like, Jun Young is the one who's like popular boy in school. And basically they're like, Jun Young is cute, and she's like, Bok Joo's like, not my type kind of situation. He needs to be like more mature, and he's far from that. And then like the other weightlifting, the other people in the weightlifting like team, come in, like the older people, so they kind of like get in line, and like, you know, basically the hierarchy system in Korea, like people that are older than you have to like listen to them and do what they say, kind of thing. And so like they're like lined up, and basically the older people are like, just because you've been here for 2 years doesn't mean that you're seniors. You're not equal to us. We're seniors. So do you think the gym is your playground? Basically they're saying, and they're like, no, sorry. We've been lax with you for a while, they're saying, and you guys don't even clean up your equipment after training. Look how dusty it is. So he's like, there's so much chalk on it. Look how the gym turned into like a pig pen thanks to you guys. So then the kind of like team leader, not team leader, like the head of, he's like the head guy of like the weightlifting team, and he's like the not oldest, he's from the seniors, and he's like, what's going on? So he comes in and he's like, what's going on? And they're just, the other team members are saying they haven't cleaned the equipment, and they're chit-chatting when they should be training. And then the older the head guy is like, just go easy on them. Like, strictly speaking, it's our fault that we didn't manage them well earlier. And then basically they're like, what are you girls doing? Go set everything up for training. He's like, and they're like, okay. And they run off to do that. And then they're just kind of like the seniors are just telling the head guy, why did you let them go? Like, what? You made us look stupid, basically, they're saying to the head guy. And he's just saying that head guy's just saying training will begin shortly. So you can tell them off then. And then the other guy is telling the head guy, who are you to decide on such matters, basically? And they're kind of like bickering. And he's just like, because you won a few medals, you can't look down on us. So basically, they're just like bickering. And he's like, I've got a phone call. I'll talk about this later. And he just kind of like runs out. And then they're still talking about, you made us look stupid. Then the girls are at lunch, and Kim Bok Joo gets a appointment reminder to go to the clinic at 2 p.m. So she's kind of like scoffing everything down quickly. And then they're just talking about they need to take things out on punching bags. Like, I think they're talking about the rest of the team. And I think I mopped too hard, my hand was shaking. That's what one of the girls is saying. So like she's holding her chopsticks and they're kind of like shaking. And they're like, this happens every year. The last year, the seniors were on edge too, because they're like waiting to see if they make the national team, or like if any other teams pick them up and stuff like that. And then they're talking about, they're graduating soon. So there's fewer like tournaments left. So there's like the pressure's on, basically. So the seniors are getting really like frustrated, and they're like taking it out on them. Basically, they're noticing. And they're like, we'll be seniors soon, but still, like, they shouldn't take it out on us. So they're just kind of like venting about how they've been like, the seniors are venting on to them. And then they're just talking about Bok Joo is such a talented athlete, and this won't happen, right? To them, basically. And then the girl, so she's just like, girls, can you take the plate back for me? And I've got to make deliveries. So she's making an excuse to leave, saying that she's got to make deliveries for her dad's chicken shop. But really, she's gone back to her room. She's getting ready. She's just like, I've just got grays. This looks like funeral outfit. And so she's just wearing this like colorful jumper, and she's running like a maniac. And then she sees the car, and she puts on the bow in her hair, in the reflection of the car. Then she runs in, she's jumping, and she's so excited, and she's walking like a crazy person, like, wide-legged and crazy. And then she gets in, and she sees the doctor, and she gives back the umbrella and says, he says, you could have kept it. She says, I can't, I should give it back to you. And then she's just like, he just notices her hairpin in her hair. And then he's like, oh, just check your body mass index. So he's just checking that. And he's saying that you have a high muscle, you have high amount of muscle, and basically most of you're overweight in your like middle area, so let's just focus on that area. And the program must be accompanied by like exercise to target that area as well. So you're a university student, so you probably don't have that much time these days to like do that. Yeah, it's difficult, she says. And then he asks, what are you majoring in? And she's just like looking around, trying to figure out what to say, because she doesn't want to say weightlifting. So she basically sees like these ornaments on his desk of like people playing instruments. So she's like, cello. And he's like, cello. And he picks up a big like he's like, you're like a cello student, so he just picks up this big like ornament that he has of like someone playing the cello. And he's like, oh, I should have known because when I first saw you, you were like carrying that big heavy vanity kind of thing. And unless you and you've got strong arms and you couldn't like do you probably got strong arms from carrying the cello all the time. And she's like, yeah, right, yeah. So she's basically agreeing with what he's saying, and he seems so happy. And he's like, I'd love to hear you play the cello someday. And he said, you can probably tell I'm an avid fan of like classical music. So, do you have like recitals and stuff like that? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, I'm just an amateur compared to you. And she's just like slightly freaking out and just like not knowing what he's saying really. And he's just like, do celloists, then she's getting like a message or a phone call. And she's basically, it's her dad saying, where are you? And why didn't you like pick up my phone call? And she's like, what do you mean? And I'm going to your school and I want to bring you some like chicken, he's saying. Are you in the dormitory? And she's like freaking out. She's like, no, I'm not. And he's like, I'll just leave it in your room with your like friends or something. And she's like, no, don't. Hello, hello. And then she basically tells him, sorry, something urgent came up and I have to come back tomorrow. I'll be sure to like follow the diet. And she like runs off. And she's like, thank you, bye, bye. And he's just like laughing because he thinks that she's like an oddball basically. And she's like running profusely, and she's trying to make it back before dad gets there. So she's like running like a maniac. They're just like her arms are like frailing about, and she's like, I don't want my dad to find out. And then she bumps into Jun Young, and she's like, can you give me a like ride back to the dormitory? And he's talking about the pin in her hair, and she quickly puts it away, getting embarrassed. And then she's like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. So she climbs on the back of his bike, and he's like struggling. He's like, oh my gosh, like this is so hard because you're heavy. And she's like basically smacking him on the back and saying, hurry up, hurry up. And he's complaining like it's so heavy. And then Shiho happens to walk by and she sees what's going on. Like he's biking her to basically at the halls of residence, and then she gets off and he's like, aren't you even gonna say thank you? But she runs and she's like, dad, dad, dad. And then Shiho's still watching all this. Then she runs in and she sees her dad and she's like, dad, 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 dad. And she grabs the like chicken off him and is basically like, oh, you're not allowed to come in here because you're a man and this is a women's dormitory, blah blah blah. And she's like, just give it to me. And he's like, I'm a busy man too. So and she kind of like pushes him out, and she's just like trying to get him out of there as quickly as possible. And she's like, thank you for the chicken, and basically waves by. And she's like, phew, basically she didn't get caught. Then they cut to Jun Young and him at his therapy session, and they're talking about, oh, you've got a lot of stress and you're an athlete, so being in a competitive environment must be really stressful. And he's like, yeah, is there a specific symptom that you experience on the day of a match? So then Jun Young is basically thinking about it, and he's like, gets a flashback to, he's like, my heart beats really fast, and he's just basically saying he's having some like sort of like panic attack kind of situation. He's explaining it, and eventually I can't hear anything, and it's as if everything's been muted. So he's just explained that to the doctor, and you can't hear anything. He's like, yeah, do you experience this during the match? And he's like, it's been happening during like a few recent training sessions as well. So he's like, I saw like an ear doctor, and basically they told me that I'm fine. My ears are fine, and that it's more of a psychological thing. Basically, that's what the doctor's saying. And usually this happens after big shocks or traumatic experiences, and it could be a type of like panic disorder or conversion disorder. And so he's just like listening to this, and he's like, why don't you try and remember like the first time you experienced this symptom? And did anything happen around that time to trigger like this symptom? And he's like thinking back, and he's like, I'm sure nothing specific is coming to mind, basically. And so he's just not willing to open up about the situation. So the doctor's like, from what I can see, you're a highly defensive person, and you don't really like to expose your vulnerabilities, and you suppress everything, and that's probably why this is happening. And he's like, I'm not really that complicated. I see you're in denial, the doctor's saying, and I'm going to find this difficult. Basically, he's saying, patients like you are the most difficult to treat. So he's like smiling with like a cheeky smile. He's like, nevertheless, you must get it out of yourself. Only then I'll be able to help you. And on that note, I think we should get to know each other better. How about coffee? He said. And then he's like, okay. Then he's just like, Jun Young is just like sitting there thinking. And then he leaves the session and he's outside this guy's house or like clinic or whatever. He's sitting on the steps and he's just thinking. And he's trying to remember when he first experienced the symptoms, and if anything happened around that time to trigger the symptoms. And then he flashed back to when he was a little kid and his mum's cleaning his tears and he's hugging his mum. And then he's looking at postcards and from his mum. I think this is when he's older. And then he notices some empty postcards that say Canada, and they're just like empty, and that's all we see. And then someone's walking up behind him, and it is his brother, basically, and he flicks his ear. And then he's like, did you come here because of me to see if I'm okay? And he's like, I came to make sure that you're taking counseling seriously. And I had like a seminar nearby and I came to pick you up, basically. And so he's like, basically, so you just came to like keep an eye on me. And he's like, yeah. And so they like walk off, and how's the counseling going? His brother's asking. And he's just saying he seems like a good doctor. He sees right through me. And then the brother's like, I told you he's like a famous doctor, like psychologist. And I know he's great. And then Jin Young's like, don't worry, I won't embarrass you. And then they just go to the car, basically. And they're in the car. And then Jin Young kind of like notices like the umbrella. And his brother just tells him the story, like, yeah, he didn't tell him the story. He's just like, oh, did you put it in this bag? Like it's really girly. Like the person I lent it to put it in this bag. And he's like, who? It's a girl, right? And he's like, yeah, it's a girl. She's a patient of mine, and she's a cellist. And she goes to music school. And he's like, oh, of course, men have like a fantasy towards girls who study music, right? I did not know this, by the way. And that's what I'm saying. That's just weird. I've never heard of that before. Anyway, so getting back to this, and then he's like, don't make things up. His brother's like, I would never fall for a patient. So tell me about her. Jin Young's saying, is she pretty? Yeah, he's like, yeah, she's quite pretty. Really? And then they're just kind of like bantering about that. And he's like, maybe I should pay a visit then to your clinic, to your session to see her. And then they cut to Jin Young being back at his dormitory and his friends like lying on the couch. And they're just like, he's just like, did you get food? And he's like, no, it's just like an umbrella. And he's like, oh, did you get a present? Must be from a girl because it's like a girly bag. And he's like, no, I lent my umbrella to my brother and he gave it back to me. So he's like, are you satisfied? And yeah, he's like, but it's got sorry patterns. Your brother has like weird taste. And basically they're like, what is this? He looks in, basically his friend looks into the bag and he's like, what is this? You're busted. And there's a note. Your brother wouldn't write this, you liar. So he's like, it's not mine. And then he's like trying to read it. And it says, thank you, Dr. Jung. What you gave me wasn't an umbrella, but your kind heart. So he's just like reading this and he's like, oh goodness, you seduced a naive college girl. He's talking about his brother. This cellist must be like smitten over him. So he just puts it down and then they cut to Bok Joo. And she's with Shiho in their room. And they're just basically Shiho is just asking, how do you know Jin Young? And she's like, oh, we went to elementary school together and he transferred to another school, so we didn't like graduate together or anything like that. And she's like, oh, I see. So she's like, yeah. So I like, she's like, oh, I see. Basically, Shiho's like, and then she like follows that up by like, do you know he was like my boyfriend? And she's like, yeah, my friend told me. You have unusual taste in men, basically. She said, Bok Joo says to Shiho. And she's like, yeah, we have a deep connection somehow. It's funny. And then they're just like basically like polite banter. And then she's just looking at her belly fat results, Bok Joo, and then she decides to do like some crunches because Shiho is like stretching on the bed. And then you see a rock, paper, scissors outside the weightlifting gym, I believe, or like outside some part of the university. And everyone's getting excited, basically, that oh, I'm really sleepy. Oh, sorry about that. You little brats. Basically the weightlifting female coach is like, you little brats. Isn't on G here. I think he's the head. The cheerleading. I'm not cheerleading. Why do I keep saying cheerleading? Weightlifting. Coach, not coach. Head of the weightlifting team. They're like, oh, he went out last night and never came back. And they're saying, oh, like he stayed out all night, and he's like, yeah. So basically the coach is like everyone like come in and like let's get started basically. So basically there's something going on with the head guy on Unji, and we don't know yet what's happening. Is there so then they're just basically in the canteen and she's kind of like reducing normal amount that she eats. So normally she stacks her dish and then Jin Young sees her and says that, oh my god, you're not eating your normal amount, and normally your food is like stacked like mountains and like the Alps and the Himalayas, and are you trying to like lose weight or something? Have you lost weight? And then she's like, stop joking around, just give it back to me, give my plate back. And he's just basically teasing her. And then, guys, sorry about my stomach. And then she's just like chasing him around to get the tray back and saying, give that back. And then Shiho notices he's teasing her in the canteen and it pisses her off. So she basically goes up to them and just pulls Bok Joo and says, Bok Joo is my roommate. And basically, didn't you know that? And she's like, she's got her arm and like showing that she's like basically pissed about the situation, but with a smile on her face, like a psychotic smile on her face, basically she has got. And then Jin Young is just like, he looks a bit peeved, and then all of them are sitting down at the table together. So the weightlifting girls and Shiho and Jin Young and his friend, and it's very very awkward. The only person smiling is Shiho, and she's like, oh, it feels good to eat with many people. Gymnasts like skip meals like most of the time. And then they're just like, oh yeah, we get it. Which is, how do you do all those gymnastic moves and everything if you don't have any like food in you? It's not making much sense. Like I'm still like stuck on that because gymnasts we see these days, like training and stuff, like they eat a lot and they're trying to gain muscle and they need a lot of protein. So it's just weird to me. So then she's just like talking to Jun Young again and she's like, oh, you look a bit skinny. You should eat well. And he's just kind of like ignoring her really. And then she puts some like meat into his dish and she's like, you can have mine. And the vegetables like stuck together. And then he's like, excuse me. And he just gets up and just goes. So she pisses him off basically. Then she's like, enjoy your lunch. And she just goes as well. So I think she's just going to go follow him. And then she's going down the staircase and, she's like, can't we just even have a meal together? Like, what's going on? Like, why do you have to be like this? And she's like, sure, we can, but you don't want to you just like want to make other people uncomfortable. So that's what I don't like about it. So, and basically he's like, you've always been like selfish like that. And then he just kind of walks off and then she's like, let's get back together. And he looks pissed off about that. And he's like, I don't want to get back together with you. And she's like, it must be you. I want to be just with you. And he's like, are you serious? I know you must think it's ridiculous. She's like, and I broke up with you after all. However, she's like, things are a bit hard back then, were a bit hard back then. And the competition was like so important to me, but I wasn't getting any better. And she's just like, basically, I was stressed. And then they just do a flashback to her. Like getting told off by the teacher, like, and she's the teacher's like, yeah, yelling at her, you're not pointing with your legs and that, like you're never going to make the national team if your balance is off and all that. And she's just getting berated and she's just like standing there and taking it and feeling upset about herself. So basically, she gets a phone call from Jun Young and he meets up with her at like a riverside and she's basically like, let's break up. So this is all in the flashback still. So she's like, oh, let's break up. And he's like, what? And she's like, yeah, let's break up. And you just see them like breaking up. And she's like, I know you're upset and or not winning your competition. But I have my own like, I don't know why they wrote this phrase. It's really weird. They're like fish to fry. And I need to focus on myself. And like you keep bothering me and it's annoying me. So he's like really hurt standing there, like, and I don't want to be with you anymore, to be your girlfriend anymore. So he's like remembering that. I think maybe he remembered that what she did, and he's like, but on that day, I was having a harder time than you. And he's like basically yelling at her. And he's like, I was disqualified and I wanted to like basically kill myself. But you didn't even have like the slightest decency. He's telling her. And she's like, you're right. I was anxious about my situation and I couldn't like comfort you when you were in pain. And he's like, yeah, that's basically why you're like selfish and I don't want to get with you again. And she's like, I'm sorry. That was my fault. I was selfish. And I'm going to do better from now on, please. So she's like begging him to get back together. And then she's just like, let's get back together. Please, please. And he's like, do you think it's that easy? And she looks like she's like got tears in her eyes and he's like, I'm leaving. And then she's just following him saying, Jun Young, please, please. And then he kind of just like walks off. Then they cut to those three weightlifting girls again, and Bok Joo's complaining about indigestion, and what happened. So then they're just like saying, what happened back? Are they back together back then at the at the what's it called? Canteen, and she's just her friends are asking, are they back together? And Bok Joo's like, I don't think so. And then they're just basically discussing like Shiho and what's happening between them. Then she gets a text. Bok Joo gets a text. And I think it's from the clinic again. So she's just like looking at it, and she's like, "What are you reading?" Her friends are like, and then they see while they're having like this little chat, they see what's his name, um, Unji, and they see him running it back into the weightlifting building, and they're like wondering what's going on there. So they go back into the weightlifting building to see what's going on, and so then they see like um we cut to inside, and it's like some the older people are talking. They're like, "Hey, I heard that Gojang has already reached the quota." So I think they're talking about like a university, or not a university. They're talking about a team, or um the national team or something like that. And they're just like all stressing about like kind of like it's hopeless, and like one of the girls saying that on Unji's back, and they're just basically asking him, where have you been? He's like, oh, I'm sorry, let's talk to the professor, the coach now. And then one of the guys is basically like um pissed off with Unji, and he says like, so you're just gonna ignore us, like what we're asking you? And he's like, did you get some good news? Basically, that he's trying to say, are you in a good mood because like you got some like good news? Um, and so Onji is just like, I'm sure you have something to say. Let's talk later. And then they're just like, gosh, he's like annoying. And then he turns around again. He's like, the um the other guy is talking to Onji, and he's like, are you the captain? Um, you're the captain, yet you broke the rules and you went off campus and you missed the morning training session. So they're basically saying that, trying to say that we think that you've got an offer and you're not telling us, and they're getting like stressed out, they're jealous, and they're like worried that they won't get any offers. So like they're kind of like taking it out on him. So and he's just like quietly listening, and they're like, we're your friends, and he's like, no, it's a personal issue, and I have to tell like the coach first before I say anything to you. So then they just basically stop fighting about the whole situation, and they're like, oh, you're a traitor and you're not telling us. Then they snatch the phone out of, he gets a phone call, and he's like, I need to answer that, and he snatches the phone out of Onji's hand, and they're like start to fight, and then the coaches notice that they're all fighting, and the coaches start yelling at them, and they're like, what are you doing? So then they punish them by making them do um planks. So everyone's holding a plank for ages, and they're just like opposite each other, looking at each other, holding planks, and they're getting told off. They're like by the coaches to hold it correctly, and he's like, if you don't do it properly, I'm going to add an extra 10 minutes to this. So basically, he's just like basically berating them, and Bok Joo is struggling, and he's just like still yelling and saying like, when I was in the Atlanta Olympics, I didn't have to, like, I behaved myself and stuff like that. Then they're left with the other coach, and they're just like struggling. So then they cut to the football field, so that everyone's outside on the football field, and then they cut back to, oh, so he went outside to the football field, and then basically he's come back with a stick, the coach, and then they're told to everyone to get up and start stretching and come outside. So it's 10 minutes before appointment, with the doctor, Bok Joo. She notices the time. And then like they've got all these barbecues up and running, and they're grilling meat for the weightlifting kids. So they start like serving the kids, so they start eating, and they're just basically like bantering. And the teacher's like, I have diabetes, so the doctor told me not to eat meat. However, I still eat it, which is and he's like, I can be healthier, but giving up meat, by giving up meat, but I'd rather eat it and enjoy it. I'd rather live a happier life than like a healthy one. That's my belief, which I think is really dumb and stupid. Like, diabetes can kill you. Like, what an idiot. And then he's like, I hope that you guys live that way too. So he's giving them stupid advice. Stupid advice from a stupid man. And I thought he was like a wise old weightlifting teacher, but not. Coach. Anyway, he's like, instead of being happy with making it to the national team and winning, I hope that weightlifting makes you happy. Yeah, obviously it does. That's why they're there. They want to pursue this because they like to weightlift. That's what got them into where they are right now. So they're just like all nodding and agreeing. And he's like, some coaches may laugh at what I said, but however, like, I wouldn't want anything I wouldn't want you guys to wreck yourselves and be obliged to like retire from weightlifting just to win a like medal. So basically, then he's like, you'd be unhappy and when you don't get one. So basically he's like, don't try to aim for that. Simply just try and love lifting weights. Just focus on that. And then Unji says, yeah, and the other seniors say, yeah, I'm sorry, we're sorry. And then they're just basically like, he's just acknowledging that everyone's stressed right now because like they're waiting for offers and stuff like that. And he's like, just focus on like being happy and don't focus on the results so much. And then the team just basically starts eating, and he's just trying to encourage them some more. And then the team starts eating, and then he's like, let everyone just start eating basically because the meat's getting burnt. So then they start taking food and start eating, and then Bok Joo's still looking at her phone and looking at the time, 10 minutes before her appointment. And then she's kind of like, then they cut to the weightlifting coaches in their office talking. And they're just basically talking about, this is really hard to do like word for word. I'm just struggling to finish this off. But I'm going to finish it off because I've got this far. So it's out of your pocket again. Like basically the teacher's saying, the female weightlifting coach is saying to the male one, like, you paid for this basically because it's out of budget. And then Unji comes in and says sorry, like, to bother you guys, but he's just apologizing that I had to step out for a while. And she says that, yeah, I was going to talk to you in private. What's with you? Why did you like leave campus? And they're saying, what's going on? You'll be back for roll call, right? And he's like, yeah, of course. And is everything okay? And he's like, yeah, it's fine. I'll see you tomorrow. He just needs to leave like early. So basically he's getting permission to leave early. And then they're just like, the coach is like, yeah, we have to just trust them and support them at this point. So yeah, they just leave it at that. And she's like smiling behind him, behind the other coach. So I think she has like a crush on that coach or whatever. The other coach has a crush on him. Oh my god, this has been 60 minutes already. So basically then Bok Joo is like, I have an appointment at 7 p.m. and I'm sorry that I'm running late. So she's ringing up the clinic and she's quickly getting dressed and she's like, I'm on my way and I'll be there soon. So she's just letting the clinic know. And then she's running in the rain and she doesn't have an umbrella. She's like, oh, damn it, I just gave my umbrella away. So she's running, running, running. She's running to the appointment. She gets there. She's like basically soaked. She's running like a crazy person again, like with her hands like frailing everywhere. And then she puts the pin in her hair again. And she's just kind of like checking herself before she goes in. I don't know why she's doing that because there's like glass doors everywhere and everyone they can see her. So then he's listening to classical music. And he's like, yeah, rained again. The doctor is like, it rained again. And he's just basically, they're just chatting about the rain. And he's like, you'll catch a cold. So she's just like feeling happy that he's like taking care of her, basically, or caring about her. And he's like, you must be in good condition to take care of yourself. And she's smiling because he's taking like caring about her. And she's like, I'll do that, doctor. And he's like, great job. You managed to lose 200 grams of body fat without any muscle loss. Stick to that diet. And she's like happy that he's happy with her. So then he just comes over and shows her like the form, and he's like standing next to him. She's basically just staring at him, making it super obvious and not staring at the paper that he's showing her. So she's just like staring at his face for like so long, like, and just like daydreaming about him basically. And then eventually he notices her doing that, and he's just like, Bok Joo, Bok Joo. Oh, she's like, sorry, yes, of course. And what was I saying? He's like questioning her, like, what was I saying? And she's like, oh, I was going to reward you, but you weren't really listening. You were thinking about something else. And she's like, yeah, sorry, I was thinking about something else. Um, I was just immersed in the music because he had like a record player, a really old school, like a record player playing like a giant record he's got on, which is a bit weird as well. And he's talking about like a particular, classical music song, and he's like, I heard it like piano intermediate level to a cellist, that song. And she's like, yeah, of course, I've heard it like so many times, I almost know it off by heart. And then he's like, oh, really? It's that, so it's like, uh, but it's so long, like, and he's like, how long did it take you to practice that in order to master it? Like, she's thinking about like what to say, and she's like saying like it depends on person to person. It's like not the same for everyone. But I guess about 3 months, 3 to 6 months. When it comes to cello, it's different, like, and can be big. And he's like, yeah, you're right, you're right. And then he's like thinking about it, and then he's like, should we start a treatment? And she's like, yeah, sure. So then he like notices some like weird tissue or something on her face, and he like pulls it off. And then her like heart's like pounding, and she's like so excited that he touched her face, basically. So she's having her schoolgirl crush moments. Then we see her friends, and they're like hungry, and they're walking in the rain with their umbrellas. Sorry, I'm getting like really like it's really dusty where I am, and my like nose is getting blocked. And then they're just like, oh, where's Bok Joo? And they're just like saying the poor girl's so busy that she has so many like deliveries to do, and like, and they're just saying that we should be better friends and we should help her, and we're not even helping her. So we should like basically go like help her do like her deliveries or whatever. And they're like shouting loyalty. So then they cut to her dad and her uncle. And it's like not busy at all in the shop, so they're just sitting there like eating some like croutons or something like that on the table. They're like, it's so quiet. And they're just like sitting there, and then the two girls pop in. So Bok Joo friends, they say that they came to basically help I mean, they don't say that, but they just come in because they wanted to help Bok Joo with the deliveries. So they're like, hi, and they're like, Dad's like, where's no, she's like, the girl's like, where's Bok Joo? And they're saying she's not here. Why would she be here at this hour? Is she not at school? Basically, the dad's saying, and then one of the girls is like, oh, Bok Joo told me that she was going to a sauna. I totally forgot. Um, gosh, I'm like so forgetful these days. Basically, she's saying, take care, Mr. Kim, and then they just like walk off, run off. And then they're like thinking like, why did she like lie? Where is she then? I can't believe that Sly Fox is like lying to us. Basically, they're saying, um, she completely fooled us. And they're just like, oh, we'll teach her a lesson. So then we cut back to the dormitory, and Bok Joo's here. She takes the pin out of her hair. She notices that it's there. So, and she's walking up the stairs, and she's trying to like get in inconspicuously without anyone seeing. And then she bumps into her friends, and her friends are like, got their arms crossed, and they're like, um, where are you going? Oh, were you going somewhere? We've been waiting for you. You're late. Where have you been? So they're like trying to get it out of her. And she's like, oh yeah, I was doing deliveries. Um, it's so busy, orders kept coming in non-stop. So they know she's lying. They're like, don't lie. We went to the chicken shop, and your dad thought, and we talked to your dad. And you better tell, basically they're like, you better tell us the truth. Um, basically what's up with you these days, and where on earth were you? And you better tell us, don't even think about lying. So she's like, cool. And she basically like, actually, what's good? She's basically makes up a story. Not really makes up a story, it kind of just like comes out. She's just like, I didn't want to tell you because I was too embarrassed. We're your friends, like you can't be embarrassed around us. And then they're like, oh no, is it that thing again? Basically, they think she's got piles again. So she's like, oh, they're like, oh, have you been going to the doctors for piles? And then she kind of just lets them believe that. And she's like, yeah, I've been going to the doctor for that. Then we see her in bed, and she's like, I guess I'm lying. So lying requires practice. The more you lie, the better you get. So that's what she's just talking to herself, because Shiho's not in the room yet. So she's just in bed, and she's like, she's searching like cello music and stuff like that to listen to. So she's trying to listen to, like, get some, like, do some research on it. Then Shiho comes into the room, and she's like, don't, oh, you like classical, I like classical music too. Don't switch it off because of me. And then she's just asking, Shiho's asking Bok Joo, like, isn't Jin Young quite charming? He makes you laugh. He comes across aloof, but he's actually very like caring. I'm sure that's what Bok Joo says, but I haven't noticed that about him. She's like disgusted by him, basically. And then Shiho's like, to be honest, I want to get back together with him. So she's making her intentions clear, and she's like marking her territory basically, and telling her like, you better not like mess that up. And she's just saying like, but he's not opening up to me. I broke his heart, so I guess it's my fault. She's like, if I asked you, would you help me like get back together with him? And she's like, me? Bok Joo's like, I'm not sure how I can help you though. And then basically Shiho's like, you and Jun Young seem like very close. So um yeah, so basically Bok Joo is like, oh gosh, like no way, like we're not that close at all, and I don't think I can help. And so Shiho's like, oh, okay, I'll just take your word for it. And then they're just like, she just like her smile drops, Shiho's smile drops, and then they're back at the gym, the weightlifting gym, and it's just the coaches, and they're just talking about like how how they're worried about the kids like might not get any offers from like teams or like the national team, and they understand that they're so stressed and it must be frustrating for them, and their like lives depend on it, and like they don't want them to become unemployed, and they're just trying to think of a strategy. So then we cut to the hospital, and Unji is with a woman, and they're looking at a baby. So it looks like he's had a kid with this girl, and like his girlfriend, and they're just talking about financial stuff. And she's like, don't worry, I can make my own seaweed soup and look after myself, and you just focus on training. So she understands like he needs to focus in order to get like a job at the end as soon as he graduates. So then he gets a call from his like weightlifting coach, and he says, we know that you're gaining weight and muscle mass. Like the coach says, like gaining weight and muscle mass isn't easy, but like if you do it, winning a medal will become easier for you. So if you go up a weight class, basically he's telling him to try and aim for a higher weight class, and Ju will be able to aim for a medal too, because Ju will be able to win in that category as well. And he said, I'll think about it and give it some thought and think about it. So basically, yeah. So they've come up with a plan to like make it easier for people to like get medals, and like by going, if he goes up a weight class, so then the weightlifting coach is like, let's call one more person, and then basically they cut to Bok Joo walking down the street. It's daytime now, and she's walking down the street, and she gets her pin out and puts it in her hair again, and she's looking at herself in the reflection of a shop window. She's trying to make it look cute and everything. And then basically she's just smiling, looking at herself, and she's feeling happy, she's feeling girly. She's like skipping down the street, and then Bok Joo dad is talking to the coaches. They've come to talk to him and saying that like we think it's best for like all the other girls, all the other medalists and stuff. If Bok Joo goes up a weight class, it'll be easier for her to win competitions, and also the people below her could win as well, because they won't be in the same weight class. It means that other people have chances of getting medals as well. But her dad's like, gaining weight is even harder than losing the weight, so I'll have to think about it. And then they cut to I don't know why they didn't just talk to Bok Joo, the coaches, instead of talking to the dad, which is weird because they talked to Eunji about it himself and not his parents. So this is weird. Maybe it's because she's a female or something like that. I don't know. So they asked the dad, and they're close to the dad because the dad does come in quite a lot to see the weightlifting coaches and stuff. So maybe it's that, like, out of courtesy, or I don't know, but it just didn't seem very like fair, or like didn't make much sense to me. Anyway, so now they cut to Bok Joo with the doctor, and she's at her appointment again, and he's like, oh, I should give you a prize, you've lost weight again and you're doing really great. And she's just like acting weird again, like have her head tilted down and like looking like from the top of her, like peeking up and saying, oh yeah. He's like, oh, what should I give you? This is like a weird doctor-patient relationship, because he's saying, I'll give you a prize, or I'll give you something for like accomplishing the goal of like losing the weight, and normally like you're paying for this service, and normally a doctor wouldn't be doing that. It's all very weird. Anyway, so he's like, what would you like? And she's thinking about it, like what she'd like as a prize, and he's like, give it some thought and let me know, and just go change for now, and we'll get on with the treatment. So then we see that Bok Joo has got changed into her like orange treatment gown. Basically, it's not a gown, but it's like nurses, what's it called, like uniform kind of thing in orange, and scrubs. Yeah, she's wearing scrubs basically, and she's looking at herself in the mirror, and she passes by Jin Young, and she doesn't even notice. And then she's looking at herself in the mirror and like smiling, and then she hears someone shout, "Chubs!" And she realizes it's Jun Young, and she turns around and he's like staring at her. And he's pointing and he's like, what are you wearing? And he's like laughing. And she's like, why? And then the doctor comes in and it's like, what brings you here, bro? And then Bok Joo's like, bro. And then Jin Young's pointing at Bok Joo. And then the doctor's like, his brother's like, do you know each other? And he's like, yeah, we go to the same. And then it's like ... So what I think is going to happen is she's just going to be like really embarrassed, and he's going to like the doctor's going to find out and everything, and she's just going to be like totally embarrassed and like really hate Jun Young for like the time being. So those are my thoughts, and that's the end. And I know this is really long. I'm going to try and cut down the episodes because I can't be doing like this is like 75 minutes, like 76 minutes, so I can't do this. Don't forget to like subscribe, and I will be doing the rest of this entire season. It's only one season, like most K-dramas. And yeah, follow on socials and subscribe to the pod on all podcast platforms, and also we're on YouTube too. Bye.